One of my favorite shows ever is Seinfeld, and I just think it's so funny. I watch it all the time. My dad showed it to me years ago, and I've watched it ever since. But every episode, before the episode actually starts, Jerry Seinfeld will do a little bit of an introduction of stand-up comedy. So it's just him in a nightclub with an audience, and he does a bit, and sometimes the bit relates to the episode ahead. And so it's just a little bit of a laugh to get you going. But I was watching it the other day, and he was doing a bit about how convicted criminals and serial killers and murderers and all kinds of horrible people, whenever they're put on trial, whenever they're going between like a car and a courtroom or a courtroom to jail or something, there's always paparazzi and media following after them, and they're always trying to hide their face. And he said, what's with these criminals trying to hide their face? Don't they have bigger things to worry about? What are they thinking? Someone from the office is going to look up and recognize, hey, is that Dan from accounting? I think they have a lot bigger things to be concerned with, like maybe the murder conviction they're facing right now. And it's funny, right? I mean, yes, you see this on TV, and it's a funny observation that Jerry Seinfeld makes. But part of me does actually kind of get it, because our face is such an intimate thing. Our face is how we are recognized. Now, it's not that you can't recognize people any other way. You know, if you call someone on the phone and you hear their voice, yes, that's an indicator of who you are. Yet for some reason, our face is a big part of recognition, right? I mean, we even talk about like facial recognition. And so I understand wanting to hide your face, because it's kind of the convicting thing. It's like, oh, not only is a person being taken into court, it's that person that I know. Now, obviously, what's funny about this is that their face is going to be everywhere in a few days anyways, especially if they did it like they know they're guilty. Odds are good they don't really have the luxury of privacy anymore. But, you know, the face is something that is, while it's out on display for everybody, it's also such a private thing, and it's something that our closest friends recognize us by, and, you know, we're known by our face. And I was thinking about this all just kind of, you know, just mulling it over in my head. And I thought about the part in the Bible where God shows himself to Moses. And what Moses asks God and what God kind of stipulates in this exchange is really interesting as far as the face is concerned. It shows the importance of the face, I think. In Exodus 33, in verse 18, Moses said, "Please show me your glory." So he'd already talked with God face to face. Now, whether that was like a Christophany, meaning like an incarnation of God, or the pre-incarnate Christ, not in his full glory, but veiled in some way in a form that Moses could interact with, we don't know. Or whether it's just like a colloquialism, like he talked with God intimately. Either one is fine. People go with different definition or different explanations of that. I'm okay with either of them. So he spoke with God and knew him, but he still asks to be shown his glory. He had not seen God's full glory yet, and this is something he desired. And then 19, and he said, meaning God, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there's a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." So this is still a privilege. I mean, he's still being presented with the glory of God, but just not, a shielded version. He's still being protected by the hand of God. And I mean, we could think about this in human terms, like people who know me intimately, if they were to see me from far away and not see my face, they could still probably tell, hey, is that Micah over there? I'm still recognizable, but it's when I turn my face to them that they would say, ah, yeah, absolutely, that's him. So this is a step of intimacy, I would say, but he's not able to see God's face, and we can see this in Isaiah 6 verse 5. I think people have rightly interpreted, it's not that God doesn't want to show him his face, but there's something that a human being cannot come into contact with, the greatness and the glory of God in its full capacity. We can't comprehend the greatness of that. And we see this in Isaiah 6 verse 5. He says, "And I said, woe is me." So this is Isaiah. He gets taken up either in a vision or in reality, and he's in the throne room of God. and he's seeing incredible things, but he's terrified because he recognizes that his own human form is not only unworthy. Unworthiness does have a part to play in all of this, but also just unable. Like, he will not be able to stand up against the glory of God. It will completely undo him. And he connects this with his sin. He says, "Woe is me, for I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." And so he recognizes, my non-goodness cannot come face to face with that ultimate goodness. This reminds me so much of the C.S. Lewis quote when he talks about, in Mere Christianity, he talks about going and seeing God when Jesus Christ returns. And he says, some believe that standing face to face with ultimate perfection will be fun. These people are merely playing with religion. And so he recognizes that, yes, the return of Christ is a wonderful thing we should all be looking forward to. And yet, being face to face with perfectness, with goodness, with glory, that is intimidating also, right? There's a fear of the Lord where it's, yes, it's not fear like I'm afraid of him, but it's a reverence, it's a respect, it's an properly estimating just how incredible and great he is. And so seeing the face of God is no small thing. Seeing God in his full glory is no small thing. It's a total unveiling of who he is. And as we've walked through history, we've seen a continuation of this unveiling of who he is to be finally revealed in the end. And John talks about this when he says, we shall see him as he is, waiting for this ultimate unveiling. So you have here Moses talking with God intimately. At the crucifixion, you have the veil being torn, so we have access to God at all times. And yet there's still a further unveiling to happen when we shall see him as he is. We're still looking forward to this time when we are transformed, we are changed, and we can see God's face as he is. And number 6, I think, points to this. That you have this Aaronic blessing that I think is so beautiful, but we miss something in it regarding the face of God. So consider this when we're thinking about Moses not being able to see the face of God in its full glory. In the Aaronic blessing in number 6, it says in Numbers chapter 6 in verse 22, it says, "The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them." So we have a really nice blessing where Aaron is supposed to go out to the people, speak these words, and then the name of God is to be placed on this people. But what we miss about the face, think about the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. This is a promise of something coming. This is, now obviously you can talk in lesser terms where it's talking about God's attention and God's focus being on you, right? God's provision being for you. Seeing his face is a blessing. And so having his attention and his focus is a wonderful blessing, and it causes him to be gracious to you when he's looking upon you. And so this is kind of what it's talking about, but it also points to this future time of being able to see God face to face. And in verse 26, the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Something we miss here is the countenance is the face, right? It's how you look, how you're perceived, your maybe the mood you're displaying. And what's interesting is this language, lift up his countenance. The only way that the Most High Being could lift up his countenance upon you is if you are somehow above him. And yet that doesn't make any sense to us because no, we are never above God. But the language here is much more like, it's not an overestimation of ourselves. It's like a parent lifting up their child and lifting up their face to you. And I think that's so beautiful, especially for those who want to say that God is so harsh in the Old Testament. Here we have not only a promise of completely unveiled intimacy where we can see God face to face, but also one in which he lifts us up like a child and looks at us in the face. And I just think that is so beautiful. And I'm really looking forward to that time. And so, yes, seeing God face to face is no fun or, small thing. That's a terrifying thing in a way. And yet one day in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, I will be changed and I will be like God and I can see him as he is. And I'm looking forward to that day where not only does he say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," but he lifts me up in his arms and looks at me. I mean, it's like being reunited with someone that you know, and yet now you know them much more fully. And I just think that is such a motivating thing for me to look forward to when I consider my relationship with God. It's one that is not only built or maintained, but it's also one that grows and progresses and has promises attached to it, where one day we will be so close that we will actually be one.